I never thought I'd have to sue my own brother over a birthday party. But here we are. My name's Ryan, I'm 35, and up until a few months ago, I considered myself a pretty chill guy. I'm the kind of person who doesn't sweat the small stuff. Forgot to text me back? No problem. Showed up late to dinner? Whatever. Life's messy. I get it. But if there's one thing I do take seriously, it's my son. His name's Dylan. He just turned 8. And if you've ever had a kid look at you like you hung the moon, you'll understand why this story hurts so much. Dylan's the best thing that ever happened to me. He was born during one of the darkest times in my life, right after my divorce, when I was crashing on a buddy's couch, trying to rebuild from scratch. His mom and I share custody, but he lives with me most of the week, and I've worked hard to give him the kind of stability I never had growing up. My own parents were chaotic at best, but I'll get to them later. For now, let's talk about my younger brother, Jason. He's 33, a year and a half younger than me, and somehow still acts like he's 19. You know the type. Always working on a big idea, always broke, always borrowing money but never paying it back. But he's got this charm about him that makes people, especially our mom, let him off the hook every time. Growing up, I was the responsible one. The one who got good grades, cleaned up, helped out, and never got into trouble. Jason? He could torch the kitchen and somehow get a hug for it. Despite all that, I've always tried to be supportive. I helped him with rent more times than I can count. Got him gigs through people I know. Once even floated him $2,500 to launch some ridiculous custom sneaker brand he dreamed up. Never saw that money again, of course. But it's family, right? And Jason has a son too, Elijah. He's 7, just a few months younger than Dylan. The boys get along decently enough, though Jason's version of parenting leans more toward TikTok babysitter and pizza for dinner every night. Meanwhile, I'm the one taking Dylan to piano lessons, soccer practice, making sure he's brushing his teeth, finishing homework, and yes, celebrating his milestones in a way that lets him feel seen. So when Dylan's 8th birthday started coming up, I wanted it to be special. Not extravagant, just meaningful. I'd had a rough quarter at work and hadn't taken time off in months, so I figured this was the perfect excuse. Dylan had mentioned he wanted a science-themed party. He's obsessed with space and dinosaurs and explosions. We were driving past the Natural History Museum one day when he pointed at it and said, "I wish I could have my birthday there." That stuck with me. Now, between work and life, I was stretched pretty thin, and Jason, conveniently, was in between jobs, working on a new app, as he put it. He offered to help plan the party. Said it was no big deal. He had connections with vendors, could pull off something epic for Dylan. I was hesitant, but he sold me on it. Said he'd take care of everything. Booking the place, catering, decorations, activities. He even promised a science-themed cake with edible planets on top. To make it easier, I gave him $10,000. Yes, 10 grand, to cover the whole thing. Venue rental, food, the cake, entertainment. I told him to keep whatever was left over as a thank you bonus. I even gave him 3 full weeks of lead time and asked for receipts. He told me not to stress, that he'd handle it, and that it would be the most amazing day of Dylan's life. That's when the first red flag should have hit. Jason doesn't do organized, but I wanted to believe. Maybe, just maybe, this time he'd pull through. Maybe he saw how much this mattered to me. Maybe he was finally ready to step up and show his own son how to follow through on a promise. The first 2 weeks, I didn't hear much. I figured he was busy planning. I asked once about the venue, and he said it was locked in. I asked about the guest list, and he said, "Don't worry, I invited all the kids from Dylan's class and a few family friends." He even sent me a blurry photo of a science-themed balloon arch he claimed he was having custom-made. I was skeptical, but again, I wanted to believe. Then, 3 days before the party, I texted him asking for the final time, date, and location so I could send reminders to parents. No response. I called voicemail. I waited a day, and then finally he texted me, super casual. "Yo bro, slight change in plans. Can we talk later?" Now I'm sweating. I call him. He answers, sounding winded, like he's juggling 5 things at once. "Hey man," he says, "so small thing. The museum ended up being booked, but I found a better spot." Better? "It's this event space downtown," he says. Very open, very modern. I already sent the invites. Sent the invites? To who? I asked. "All the important people," he says, brushing it off. "Dylan's classmates, our folks, my friends." You know, it's gonna be awesome. Trust me. I was getting annoyed. I asked him to send me the address. He said he would. He didn't. The night before the party, I was in full panic mode. Dylan was bouncing off the walls with excitement, asking if we'd see real fossils or if the cake would have lava on it. I kept reassuring him, even though I had zero clue what was happening. Jason finally texted me at 9:47 p.m. Doors open at 2 p.m., 525 Oak Street. Dress nice. It's a surprise. Surprise? I didn't like the sound of that. And I really didn't like what I saw when I walked into that venue the next day. But I'll get to that. Because the moment I opened that door, everything changed. I should have known the second I pulled up to 525 Oak Street that something was wrong. The building was nice. Upscale. Actually, way too upscale for a kid's birthday party. Glass walls, valet out front, and a marquee that read, "Happy 8th Birthday Elijah," in giant silver lettering. Elijah, not Dylan. I froze. At first, I thought maybe Jason made a mistake. Maybe he gave me the wrong address. Maybe the marquee guy messed up the name. I even triple-checked the invite text on my phone to make sure I hadn't misread it. Nope. 525 Oak Street. 2 p.m. Surprise. It was 1:58 p.m. Dylan was in the back seat of my car, wearing his little astronaut hoodie and holding a wrapped box of dinosaur Legos, excited to give them to his best friend Leo, who he thought would be at the party. He was chattering about whether the cake would erupt like a volcano and if he'd get to touch a real fossil. Meanwhile, my heart was thudding so hard it drowned out every other thought in my head. I didn't want to ruin his moment. Not yet. So I swallowed my anxiety, forced a smile, and said, "Ready, Captain Dylan?" He grinned, buckled his NASA backpack, and jumped out of the car. The moment we walked into the venue, the air shifted. Everything was blue and silver. Giant cutouts of Fortnite characters and race cars were taped to the walls. A DJ in the corner was blasting some remix of Kids Bop. There were no science experiments. No planets. No dinosaurs. No anything Dylan had talked about for weeks. But the worst part? There was a huge banner stretched across the back wall of the main room that read, "Happy birthday, Elijah. You're the star today." My stomach dropped. Jason spotted me before I spotted him. He walked up like nothing was wrong, wearing a matching blue button-up with Elijah and grinning like he just closed a $1 million deal. His girlfriend, Tanya, who I've never gotten along with, was trailing behind him in a sparkly dress, holding a tray of cake pops. "Ryan, you made it," he said, arms wide, pulling me in for a hug I didn't return. "Isn't this place sick?" "Jason," I said through my teeth, trying not to cause a scene. "What is this?" "It's Elijah's birthday, man," he said, like I was the one being crazy. "You didn't see the texts?" "What text?" I said, already knowing the answer. He shrugged. "Must have been a glitch or something. Anyway, listen, I figured it made more sense to combine the parties. The kids are basically the same age, and Dylan loves Elijah, right? So I just pivoted a little." "Pivoted?" I was seething. "You used my money to throw a party for your kid." He looked around, lowering his voice. "Hey, don't make this weird, okay? It's a shared experience. Like co-hosted. And honestly, Elijah deserves something nice. He's been having a tough time lately, what with Tanya getting laid off and all." I swear I blacked out for a second. This wasn't some tiny miscommunication. He had taken my $10,000, lied about the venue, lied about the theme, and hijacked Dylan's party, turning it into a surprise party for his son, and then had the audacity to act like it was some noble gesture. Dylan was standing near the dessert table, his little smile slowly fading as he looked around. The music, the decorations, none of it matched what we talked about. He looked confused, disappointed. Then he turned to me and asked, "Where's the volcano cake, Dad?" I knelt down and forced the words out. "I don't know, buddy. Let's go find it." I marched back to Jason. "Where's Dylan's cake?" Jason blinked. "There's cake over there. It's a Cars theme. The bakery didn't have time to make two. You promised him a science cake." "Bro, cake is cake. Don't be so uptight." I was shaking. "Where are Dylan's friends?" "His classmates. They're here," Jason said, waving vaguely toward the bouncy house. "I think." "You think? You sent invites, right?" "I invited the people I knew. Tanya did the invite. Maybe there was a mix-up." I scanned the crowd. Not a single parent from Dylan's class. Not one. Just Jason's friends, his coworkers, and a bunch of kids Dylan barely knew. I saw our parents too, My mom snapping pictures of Elijah with a sparkler candle, and my dad sipping punch like it was just another Saturday. Nobody looked concerned. I tried to stay calm for Dylan's sake, but it was unraveling fast. The final straw came when Tanya walked over, leaned down to Dylan, my son, and said in this sugary voice, "You don't mind that it's Elijah's party today, right, sweetheart? You'll still get cake." Dylan's lip trembled. That was it. I stood up. "Jason, we're leaving." He blinked. "Dude, don't be dramatic. The kids just got here. There's going to be a magician in like 20 minutes. I don't care if David Blaine shows up riding a dinosaur. We're done." I grabbed Dylan's hand. He didn't protest. He just looked at me with this quiet, confused expression, the kind that says he knew something was wrong but didn't have the words yet. We walked out, past the glitter balloons, past the smiling adults, past the party that was supposed to be his. Once we got in the car, I sat there, hands gripping the wheel. Dylan was quiet. I was trying to figure out what to say, how to spin it, how to salvage what was left of his day. But before I could speak, Dylan said something I'll never forget. Was I not good enough for my birthday? I couldn't breathe. I turned around in my seat and looked him in the eyes. No, buddy. You are more than good enough. This was never about you. Uncle Jason, he made a bad choice. And I'm going to make it right. I promise. He nodded slowly, but he didn't smile. And that crushed me more than anything. The rest of that day was a blur. I took him to his favorite arcade and let him win every round. We got burgers and milkshakes, and I gave him his gift early, a telescope he'd been eyeing for months. He lit up for a while, especially when we looked at the moon together later that night. But something had shifted in him. And me too. And then came the aftermath. I texted Jason that night. "You stole from me. We need to talk." No reply. The next morning, I emailed him. "I want the receipts. Every dollar. You have 48 hours. Still nothing. By day 3, I started hearing things. A mutual friend told me Jason was telling people I flaked on the party and left early for no reason, that I misunderstood the plan and overreacted, that both boys were supposed to share it, and I walked out for drama. Drama? You know what else I found out? The venue? Booked under Tanya's name. The cake? Ordered by his coworker. The decorations? Rented weeks ago, the day after I gave him the money. Meaning this wasn't a last-minute change. It was always Elijah's party. Jason had planned the whole bait and switch from the start. He used Dylan as a cover to fund a lavish party for his own kid, counting on me being too passive to push back, or too family loyal to cause a scene. But he made one fatal mistake. He underestimated how far a father will go to protect his son, and I was just getting started. After that night, something in me cracked. Not in an explosive way, not in some movie-worthy montage of rage and revenge. No, it was quieter than that. Quieter and deeper, like a hairline fracture in a foundation. You can't see it from the outside, but the weight of it starts to shift everything. I stopped talking to Jason. For the first week, it was easy. I told myself I just needed space. That once I cooled off, we'd talk it out, maybe scream it out, and things would settle. But every time I opened my phone and saw the pictures people had posted from Elijah's party, with Dylan's name nowhere in sight, something twisted in my chest. Tanya had uploaded a full album on Facebook, titled Elijah's Epic Eighth. Thanks Uncle Ryan for sponsoring. Sponsoring? Like I was some faceless donor. I didn't even know what to do with that. My mom, bless her for trying, called me 2 days later. "Sweetheart, I know you're upset, but can't you just let it go? Jason didn't mean any harm." Didn't mean harm? He stole from me. I said. He humiliated Dylan. He's family, she said, like that was supposed to fix it. He just got a little overwhelmed. Tanya's been out of work, and Elijah's had a tough year. Maybe Jason thought he could combine things to make everyone happy. Dylan wasn't happy. She sighed. Well, maybe Dylan just didn't understand. That broke something in me even more. It was like the adults in my life had all agreed to live in a shared delusion. That if we all smiled hard enough and kept saying it's fine, the cracks wouldn't show. But I couldn't live in that house of denial anymore. Not with Dylan asking me every night if we'd ever do his party again. And not when I had to explain to his teacher why half the class had no idea they were even invited. Jason never sent the receipts. Never replied to the email. Never called back. But he did post a selfie the following week, grinning with Elijah and Tanya at a water park resort. The caption read, "When hard work pays off. Treat your family, they deserve it." That was when the silence stopped feeling like self-care and started to feel like cowardice. But at the same time, I wasn't okay. I felt humiliated and guilty, not just about the money, but about Dylan, about the look in his eyes when the cake wasn't for him, about the fact that I let someone take advantage of me again. I've always been the forgiving one, the fixer, the quiet one, the guy who keeps the peace because someone has to. But keeping the peace at the expense of your own kid, that's not peace. That's surrender. Still, I didn't rush to get revenge. I didn't blast Jason online. I didn't show up to his place demanding cash. No, I went quiet. And in that quiet, something started to shift. The fall didn't happen all at once. It crept up on me. Work got harder. I was in sales, and when your job is to sound upbeat and persuasive on calls while your stomach's in knots, well, it doesn't go great. I missed 2 deals in a row. My boss called me into his office and asked if everything was okay. I lied, said I was just tired, that I needed to recharge. But really, I was drained. Spiritually, mentally, emotionally. I didn't trust anyone. I started questioning everything. The way I give, the people I trust, even how I parent. I started replaying old memories with Jason in a new light. The way he borrowed my car in college and returned it with a cracked bumper. The time he asked for help paying Tanya's vet bill and then posted a video from a bar that night. I realized it had always been this way. I just didn't want to admit it. One night, after Dylan fell asleep, I poured myself a drink and sat on the couch flipping through old pictures. There was one from Dylan's 5th birthday. We were in the backyard, balloons tied to the fence, a dinosaur cake from a grocery store, and Dylan was wearing this paper crown he made in school. He looked so happy. The kind of happy you don't fake. No big venue. No giant banner. Just me, him, and people who actually cared. I stared at that photo for a long time. And then I opened my laptop. If Jason wasn't going to give me receipts, I'd build the paper trail myself. I started digging. Texts, emails, screenshots of our conversations. Bank transfers. My Venmo history. I remembered the exact day I gave him the $10,000. It was a direct wire. I pulled the statement. There it was. Labeled Birthday Dylan. I found messages where he explicitly said he was handling Dylan's party. Promises in writing. Mentions of the Natural History Museum. The works. Then I called the museum. The woman on the phone was polite, but confused. No, sir. We didn't have any birthday bookings under the name Jason or Elijah or Ryan for that date. In fact, that weekend was reserved for a private fundraiser. So he never even tried. I opened a spreadsheet. Line by line, I started recording everything. The transfer. The promised services. The actual outcome. I even messaged a few parents from Dylan's class to ask if they'd ever received an invite. Most of them hadn't. A few said they got something from Tanya's email, but it mentioned Elijah, not Dylan, so they assumed it was a different party. I started to realize this wasn't just a betrayal. It was fraud. Maybe not criminal, maybe not jail-worthy, but enough to make a small claims judge raise an eyebrow. Enough to call a lawyer. Not to sue yet, but to understand what my options were. I didn't tell anyone. Not my parents. Not Dylan. Not even my friends. I just worked. Quietly. Calmly. And somewhere in that quiet rage, I started rebuilding. Work got better. I stopped faking cheeriness and started getting real. When a colleague asked how I was doing, I actually told her. Not the details, just that I'd had a family betrayal, and I was working through it. She didn't flinch. Just nodded and said, yeah, been there. We ended up having coffee. Nothing romantic, just connection. Real talk. Dylan and I started spending more quality time together. No big events. Just hikes. Movie nights. I let him help me cook dinner, even if it meant waiting 30 minutes longer and burning the rice half the time. I listened more. And one night, while we were lying on the grass looking at the stars through his telescope, he said something that made my heart break in a good way. I like this birthday better, he said. The one after the fake one. I smiled. Yeah. It's just us. It wasn't just us, though. Not anymore. See, the more I rebuilt my own life, the more I noticed how Jason's life started to fray. He kept up the social media facade, of course, fancy captions, new hashtags, flexing designer clothes that he definitely hadn't bought himself. But cracks were showing. Tanya got a new job and moved to another city. Jason didn't follow. Then a friend of mine, a wedding planner, messaged me out of the blue. Hey, weird question. Did your brother book a venue using your name? I stared at my screen. What venue? I asked. She sent a screenshot. Jason had apparently name-dropped me to get a discount on a banquet hall for a family reunion. Claimed I'd worked with them before, vouched for him. He'd even used my old company email in the forms. I called the venue myself. Sure enough, it was booked under my name, with his phone number and a deposit paid in cash. That was it. That was the moment I stopped being quiet. But I didn't yell. I didn't confront. I just smiled. Because I realized something. Jason didn't just think he could take from me. He needed me. My name. My reputation. My consistency. He built his chaos on the foundation of my stability. And for the first time in my life, I was ready to take that foundation back. So I kept building. Building my case. Building my network. Building his downfall. And when the moment finally came to strike, I'd do it in a way he'd never forget. But we'll get there. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. I wasn't planning on a banquet. I was planning a 5-course meal with a wine pairing and a dessert menu Jason wouldn't see coming. By now, I had everything I needed to crush him legally. Emails, texts, bank transfers, screenshots, a witness list, and even voice memos from a few parents confirming they'd never been invited to Dylan's birthday. But I didn't want to just win in court. That would have been too clean, too quick. Jason had humiliated my son. He made Dylan question if he even deserved his own birthday. This wasn't about just getting my money back. This was about making sure Jason learned, finally, that actions have consequences. That being the golden boy with a slick smile doesn't shield you forever. And I wasn't going to break the rules to do it. I was going to beat him at the rules. I wanted him to choke on every corner he'd cut. I wanted the walls he leaned on to collapse, not because I pushed them, but because he built them out of straw. So, step 1, start quietly burning his bridges. I started with vendors. Jason had always loved to brag about his connections. It's how he got most of his discounts on party venues, equipment rentals, catering. What people didn't know was that those connections usually came through me. Years ago, I worked in event sales. I still knew people in the industry. One of my old colleagues, Marissa, ran a vendor coordination agency now, the kind that high-end planners use to source venues, permits, and logistics. I gave her a call. "Hey Mar," I said casually. "You ever work with a guy named Jason Maddox?" Silence for a beat. Then, "Ryan, please tell me he's not family." "Unfortunately, he is." She groaned. "He's been using your name. Said you referred him. We cut him a deal last month on a lighting package. It was a mess. Late payments, last-minute changes, and he tried to upsell the DJ without telling us. Mind if I clear that up for you?" "Please." So I did. I explained everything, calmly, factually. She didn't just believe me. She was furious. She told me Jason had done this to 2 other vendors on her list as well. Claimed he was tight with me and used that to bypass standard contracts and negotiate family discounts. And that's when I saw my opening. "Would you be open to sending a vendor-wide memo?" I asked. "Just letting people know he doesn't represent me, or anyone else for that matter?" She didn't hesitate. Done. Within a week, Jason's name was flagged in 3 internal vendor systems. His deposit refunds were delayed due to verification. His inquiries went ignored. His discounts vanished. Tanya's old event planner friend, who had helped him with Elijah's party, messaged me privately and said, "Thank you. He name-dropped you to us too. We would have never guessed." That was just phase 1. Phase 2 required a little more creativity. See, Jason had always leaned on social clout. He loved being seen as the fun dad, the guy who threw the best parties, who made things happen. But his image was fragile. He needed that facade like a shark needs motion. If he stopped performing, he drowned. So I decided to hit him where it hurt, his public persona. I created a new Instagram account, anonymous, no followers, no posts, and followed all the event pages he'd tagged from Elijah's party. Then I messaged each one with a simple inquiry. "Hey, curious why you helped promote a party that was funded under false pretenses? Heard the dad stole the money meant for his nephew's birthday and used it for his own kid. Seems off." I didn't accuse. I asked, just enough to plant doubt. A few didn't respond. But one, a kids' party entertainer with 80K followers, replied, "Wait, are you talking about Jason? He hired me for that party. Paid in cash. Said it was a combo birthday, but only Elijah's name was on everything." I felt weird about it. I didn't push. I just thanked them and moved on. A few days later, their post about Elijah's party was quietly taken down. Another domino. Then came phase 3, the party. No, Not another fake shared party. A real one. For Dylan. On his own terms. I'd already missed his birthday, and I wasn't about to let that be the final word. But I didn't want to just throw a makeup party. I wanted to flip the narrative. Reclaim the story. Dylan deserved to feel like he was worth the celebration. So I started planning, quietly and carefully. I didn't tell Dylan at first. Just told him we were going to do something cool soon. A surprise. But his surprise, not someone else's hijack. I reached out to the Natural History Museum again. Turns out they had a last-minute cancellation for a Saturday afternoon 3 weeks out. It wasn't cheap, but I wasn't thinking about cheap. I was thinking about right. I booked it. Then I called in every favor I had. A former client of mine ran a mobile science lab for schools. They agreed to bring their volcano experiment station and Dino Dig kit. Another buddy of mine was a children's illustrator. He offered to do personalized caricatures of every kid in space suits. I hired a baker who specialized in custom cakes, and together we designed a 4-tiered masterpiece. Half galaxy, half prehistoric jungle, with an erupting chocolate lava center and tiny edible astronauts scaling the sides. But this time, I didn't give a dime to anyone else to plan it. I kept control. I made sure every kid in Dylan's class got a proper invite, with his name, his theme, his photo. I even called their parents directly to explain what had happened, without trashing Jason. Most of them responded with sympathy. I was wondering why the invite said Elijah, one mom said. We were confused. Glad you're doing this, another dad told me. Dylan deserves his own day. And then I got an idea. It started as a joke. But the more I thought about it, the more it felt perfect. What if I scheduled Dylan's party on the same day as Elijah's actual birthday? It just so happened that Elijah's real birthday, not the fake surprise party date, was coming up. Jason usually throws something big for it. Always makes a scene. But now, he was ghosted by vendors. No favors. No discounts. No network. So I booked Dylan's party for the exact same day. And I invited everyone. All of Dylan's classmates. All of the extended family. All of Jason's mutual connections. The ones who used to believe his stories. But here's the twist. I didn't tell anyone it was the same day. I just let the invitations speak for themselves. Meanwhile, I kept tabs on Jason. Not in a stalkerish way. Just through mutual circles. He tried to book a venue. Got denied. Tried to rent a bouncy castle. Vendor bailed. Someone told me he was scrambling to find an alternate plan. Hosting something at a park, maybe, or a last-minute pizza party. It didn't matter. Because I was already several steps ahead. I wasn't just setting the stage for revenge. I was building a new narrative. One where Dylan wasn't the afterthought. He was the main character. And Jason? He was about to find out what it feels like to be invisible. The night before the party, Dylan found me taping together gift bags with tiny astronaut helmets on top. He watched me for a minute, then said, "Is this for the surprise?" I smiled. "Yeah, but this time, the surprise is yours." He grinned. "Will there be lava cake?" "Chocolate lava," I nodded. "And an edible T-Rex." He gasped and threw his arms around me. "Thanks, Dad." That moment, that hug, that was when I knew. This wasn't just about getting even. It was about showing my son that when people betray you, you don't shrink. You rise. And you make the world remember exactly who you are. But the next day, that's when everything came crashing down for Jason. And I haven't even told you the best part yet. The morning of Dylan's real birthday party, not the decoy, not the lie, the real one, the one he earned and deserved, started off bright and quiet. The sky was this soft kind of blue that made everything feel intentional. Like even the weather was rooting for him. I woke up before he did. Made pancakes with chocolate chip stars, sliced strawberries into little rocket shapes. Nothing fancy, just thoughtful. That's what I'd learned through all this. Kids don't need grand, they need real. By the time we got to the museum, the staff was already setting up. Tablecloths printed with constellations. Planet-shaped balloons tied to dino footprints leading toward the main exhibit hall. The science team had their stations ready. DIY volcanoes, meteorite touch samples, and even a build-your-own-asteroid kit. Dylan couldn't stop bouncing on his heels. And the cake? It stole the show. 4 towering tiers, rotating slowly on a custom stand. The top half was a night sky filled with sugar stars and astronauts. The bottom was a dense jungle of ferns, raptors, and a tiny molten volcano that actually oozed chocolate when tapped. Dylan stared at it like it was a spaceship. "Is this all for me?" he whispered. "All of it," I said, kneeling beside him. Every single part. By noon, kids were arriving in waves. Classmates, neighbors, even 2 cousins from my ex's side. Every one of them was holding a gift and calling his name. And Dylan? He beamed. Not smiled, beamed. He didn't know yet what I'd done behind the scenes. To him, this was just magic. To me, it was reclamation. Around 12:30, while kids were decorating astronaut helmets and chasing flying drones shaped like pterosaurs, I stepped away to check my phone. I had one unread message from a mutual friend of Jason's. Bro, what the heck is going on? Where's everybody? I didn't reply. Apparently, Jason's party, a hastily thrown together barbecue at a local park, was starting to unravel. Fast. Turns out when you lie to people for long enough, they stop showing up. The parents Jason had expected to attend had all RSVP'd to my event. He hadn't even realized Dylan's party was on Elijah's actual birthday until it was too late. Most of them hadn't even told him they were going elsewhere. They just went. From what I heard later, the setup was rough. No decorations. No show. No cake at first. He'd forgotten to pick it up and had to sprint to a grocery store. Tanya didn't come. Apparently, she'd caught wind of what he did with the $10,000 and decided she'd had enough. She and Elijah had been on shaky terms with Jason since she moved back in with her sister. This was the last straw. But the real blow was the entertainment. Jason had apparently bragged that the same magician from Elijah's last party was going to be there again. Except, well, that magician, he was at my party because I'd hired him and paid him properly, in advance, with a contract. So around 1:45, right after Dylan finished building a baking soda rocket that launched 5 feet into the air, the magician appeared in full astronaut gear, hovering beside the kids with smoke effects and an animatronic alien puppet. The screams of excitement were so loud I could barely hear the music anymore. That was the moment I got the second message from Jason. Seriously? You booked him? You planned this on today? I didn't respond to that one either. Because the truth is, I didn't plan it on Elijah's birthday. Elijah's birthday just happened to fall on the day the museum became available. Jason didn't have a monopoly on calendars. He just assumed I'd play small, that I wouldn't make a move. But I did. And now, he was sitting on a public park bench next to melting hot dogs and folding chairs while his son asked why none of his friends came. I should have felt guilty, but I didn't. Because Jason had done that to himself. He was the one who betrayed us. He was the one who used his own son to steal from mine. This wasn't revenge. This was balance. I waited until the party wound down, after Dylan had opened his gifts, after the second round of cake, after the museum staff handed him a framed photo of him wearing his little white lab coat, holding a plastic beaker like a scientist in training. He grinned at me and said, "Can we do this every year?" You bet. Then, and only then, did I walk out to the front of the museum and call Jason. He answered immediately. "You've got to be kidding me, Ryan." I said nothing. "Do you realize what you did? You made me look like a clown." I kept my voice calm. "You didn't need any help with that. You sabotaged Elijah's birthday." "No," I said evenly. "You sabotaged Dylan's. I just made sure he got it back." He huffed. I had to explain to my son why his party was empty. Why people were posting pictures from a museum party across town. "You manipulated people." I laughed. The kind of slow, tired laugh you let out when someone still doesn't get it. "I didn't manipulate anyone, Jason. I sent out honest invitations. I didn't lie. I didn't bait and switch. I didn't throw a surprise party for my kid using your money and then pretend we were co-hosting." He tried to interrupt, but I cut him off. "You've coasted your entire life on charm and shortcuts. You think because people don't confront you, they don't see you. But they do. They all do. And they're done. You're not better than me, Ryan," he spat. "I don't need to be better than you," I said. "I just need to be better for Dylan. And I am." Silence. Then he snapped, "I want that 10 grand back." I smiled. "Great. I'll see you in court." And I meant it. Because 3 days later, I filed a small claims suit. I had the documentation, the bank transfer, the texts, the vendor testimony, the signed email from the museum proving he never booked it, the statement from a parent saying Jason misled them about whose party it was. My lawyer told me it was one of the cleanest misuse of funds cases he'd ever seen. Jason tried to fight it, said it was a gift, not an agreement. But the paper trail didn't lie, especially the part where he promised a science-themed event for Dylan and delivered a Fortnite cake with Elijah's name on it instead. The judge awarded me $9,650. Minus some minor expenses Jason proved he'd covered. He didn't even show up to the final hearing. I garnished it from his tax return 6 months later. Last I heard, Jason's moved back in with our parents. His little circle of vendors dried up. The events business he claimed he was launching folded before it started. Tanya's not returning his calls. Elijah still spends time with him, but I noticed something when they came to a school event a few weeks later. Elijah didn't run to his dad. He ran to Dylan. And Dylan? He handed him a slice of leftover birthday cake from our freezer. The one shaped like Saturn. You can have the rings, he said. Jason just watched from a few feet away, hands in his pockets, trying not to look like he cared. And me? I stood behind my son, proud and calm. Because for once, I didn't need to fix anything. It was already done. And Dylan finally knew the truth. He was never the afterthought. He was the whole reason.